So, in our day of chronically online faith pontificating, I think that it would be useful to keep in mind the advice of one of the greats of the 20th century, Thomas Merton. And he's dealing with, in the Ascent to Truth, these three categories of people that don't believe. And first, there's the frank atheist. The third group is those who still cling to the outward forms of religion without a living faith in God. So the cafeteria Catholic. But then there's this second group that he believes is most widespread and most in need of our focus. And this problem of unbelief is in this second group is centered in those who to some extent know God but cannot believe in him. And they're often involved in a spiritual anguish because of this ambivalence. They just find it, they want to believe. I believe, help my unbelief, right? And in addressing this problem, he says something that's very helpful for us in the day of everybody and their mom wanting to be an apologist online. If we sometimes fail to meet this problem of unbelief in those who would like to believe but cannot, it is generally because we are merely apologetes when we ought to be apostles. We have been trained to feed men not with Christ, the bread of life, but rather with apologetic arguments. The reason for this is, perhaps, that we have been brought up on the technique of grappling with the church's strongest and most vocal opponents, the atheists and skeptics. But actually, these are seldom the ones we are called upon to convert. Even when someone with a genuine desire to believe comes to a priest with difficulties and with questions drawn from the enemies of the church, the chances are that these questions are not really his difficulties at all. He thinks he needs them as a pretext for talking, or he hopes to use them as an excuse for not committing himself to any moral action. Cardinal Newman long ago saw the distinction between intellectual difficulties and theological doubt. I think that as soon as this distinction is explained to some of those who recognize the rationality of faith without being able to believe, their difficulties will vanish. For they do not realize that the virtue of faith has, for its material object, truths which are so profound and which so far exceed our intelligence that they are called, and are in the highest sense, mysteries. It is quite obvious that these truths are not easy to understand and that they present tremendous intellectual difficulties. However, it is not at all true to say that the mysteries of faith are of themselves unintelligible or that their intelligibility does not matter. Of themselves, the mysteries of faith are supremely intelligible, for they are all deeply immersed in the eternal truth and infinite intelligence of God. For that very reason, we are incapable of penetrating their depths by the mere light of our reason. To be unable to understand the mysteries of faith is by no means to be unable to believe them. And yet, as I have said, faith is in no way the blind acceptance of a truth which we have no hope of understanding. Although we can never comprehend the full meaning of these mysteries, yet faith is the key to a relative understanding of them. It is after the initial act of belief that the believer begins to see. Only then can the intellectual difficulties presented by these mysteries be dealt with in a way that is, in some sense, satisfactory.